Are you ready to explore the island of St. Thomas, but not sure where to start your planning? We've got you covered. Coming up. Where are we going next? Let's go. St. Thomas and the U.S. Virgin Islands are a great choice when choosing a destination in the Caribbean. But like any destination, there is a ton of information to sift through to decide on the experience that you are going for. This step-by-step guide will give you an overview of what to consider when planning your own special trip to the island of St. Thomas and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The first thing to consider is why St. Thomas. Well, first and foremost, the U.S. Virgin Islands, being a part of the United States, makes it a little easier to enter and exit. As a U.S. citizen, you don't need a passport. All you need is your driver's license and your birth certificate to prove that you were born in this country and are a citizen. So it makes it a little bit less prohibitive. You don't have to have a visa. You don't have to do any crazy requirements to enter the country because it's already part of the United States. There is some level of familiarity that gives you a little bit of comfort of home while still exploring the Caribbean. Now, it is definitely a Caribbean island and does have a very much of a Caribbean vibe, but it does make it feel a little bit easier getting in and out, knowing that it is part of the United States. The other part is the proximity to the neighboring islands and the fact that you can explore multiple islands on one trip. And it's just quite frankly beautiful. Now that you've decided to go and you're flying into STT, St. Thomas International Airport, you now need to get around the island and you need to figure out where to stay. So first, let's figure out where we're staying. There's two main areas that I would recommend finding accommodation, especially on your first trip to the island. The first would be right near Charlotte-Amalie. There are several different accommodations within Charlotte-Amalie or very nearby. This is a nice central location for you. It's close to the cruise port, close to grocery stores, and it's close to the main historic center of Charlotte-Amalie, so you can do some quick exploring and shopping, of course, when you have time. The second area I would consider would be Red Hook, and that is simply because it's another kind of tourist hub. There's a ton of nightlife and restaurants up that way, as well as the ferry port to head over to St. John. So it tends to be a very popular spot with lots of hotels and resorts in that vicinity. I alluded to it before. How are you getting around the island? Well, you really have two main choices. You can taxi or you can rent a car. Now, a lot has been made of driving on the island, and I will say that there is some truth to the fact that it's a little touch and go around some of those really steep, narrow roads. However, island driving is not city driving. It's not highway driving. You generally are going about 25 miles an hour at all times. So even though they are tight, windy roads, driving can actually be a really fun experience on the island. The other thing that kind of throws you a curveball when you're driving on the island is, while it may be part of the United States, it is the only part of the United States where they drive on the left-hand side of the road. So that can be a little fun with your mind, trying to navigate that and make sure you're on the correct side. Taxis, quite frankly, can be convenient, and if you're not going to be running around the island too much, they can be an effective way to get out and go. However, they do add up. They can be very expensive, and you end up spending quite a bit of money on them. You're likely to save quite a bit of money on renting a car, especially if you get a local island rental, which helps you be a little bit more inconspicuous and not stand out like the sore thumb of a tourist. And since you have your car, you'll be able to go grocery shopping at one of the many options on the island. You're going to want to check out my video here on all the different grocery stores that we reviewed while we were there. There's pretty much, you can get anything you want there. We didn't find that we couldn't find items on the island. Everything was pretty readily available, and it was fairly fully stocked as well. Of course, your prices are higher. You're on an island. It's always going to be higher than on the mainland. Now you got to figure out how you're going to plan your days. Just some recommendations here. Every trip is going to be different. What I will say is make sure you check 3 main things. Number 1, check the cruise ship schedule. You want to be aware of when those popular spots are going to be super busy. So whenever there's a cruise ship or 2 or 3 in port, you're going to want to stay away from some of the more popular destinations because they're going to be overrun with cruise passengers. Number 2, you want to check the weather. Now, just about every day when you're in the tropics, there's going to be a chance of rain. You just want to make sure you go for the lower percentage chance of rain on the days that you want to hang out at the beach. And if it's a higher percent chance of rain, maybe those are the days that you explore downtown or go up to mountaintop and do some shopping. And third, you want to be smart about arranging your days with areas of the island that you're going to explore. So you want to group together maybe different sites, beaches, or attractions that you're going to go see. Make sure that they're nearby. You don't want to waste your time driving from one end of the island to the other end of the island, only have to go back to the other end of the island for another attraction, beach, or site. There's some things on St. Thomas that you simply cannot miss while you're there. Number 1, that being Magens Bay. It is voted one of the most beautiful beaches in the entire world, so make sure you do not miss it. There is an entrance fee. Make sure you carry cash, but it's about $4 a person plus $2 for parking, so it's really not a bad experience, and it's just a beautiful way to spend a day. You don't want to miss Mountaintop. It's the best place for souvenir shopping. Make sure you head up there. Not to mention, it has a little bonus. It has the most incredible view of Magens Bay. Speaking of views, if you want the place to see the sunset on the entire island, you're going to want to head up to Paradise Point. This spot simply cannot be missed. I have never seen a more breathtaking view of a sunset than Paradise Point. And finally, I think you cannot miss Mermaid's Chair. It's just a really unique spot. I have an entire video on it right here. Make sure you check that out and see why this incredible spot has to be on your list. Now, I could go on and on, but those were the ones that I just simply think you cannot miss. There's always other things to consider when you're planning a trip, one of which is being, what do you carry with you, cash or card? Well, I can tell you on St. Thomas, cards are widely accepted throughout the island, but the island is known to sometimes lose power. It happened while we were there. We were going out to dinner. Power had been lost earlier in the day. We didn't realize it because we were at a beach all day long. And when we got to the restaurant, we realized that a lot of the power had been out. Well, the power came back on. However, the credit card terminals did not come back online, which meant that they could not accept credit card. Thank God we did travel with cash, so we were able to pay for our dinner that night without washing some dishes. But just be aware of that. It's a good idea to always carry cash with you as well as card. Another thing to know is if you're renting a car, you want to know where to park and how accessible parking is at the beaches. I will say pretty much every beach had parking, with a few exceptions. Koki Beach was a little hit or miss. It wasn't really clearly marked. You had to kind of park either on the side of the road or in a lot that we weren't really sure if we were supposed to park there or not. Also downtown Charlotte-Amalie, there is a lot right next to Fort Charlotte. It's just difficult to understand the signs whether or not you should park there. We didn't have a problem parking there whenever we went downtown, but again, just park at your own risk. Make sure you're reading the signs and do the best you can. I will say Magens Bay, Sapphire Beach, those both had large parking lots and free parking. There are other beaches, Brewers Bay and whatnot, that have ample parking. So for the most part, we did not have an issue parking anywhere on the island. And probably one of the most important things to consider when you're traveling is safety. Most of the Caribbean islands that we've ever been to have about the same degree of safety. Anywhere you travel in the world, it might be paradise, but it's not utopia. Don't let your guard down. Make sure you're doing your common sense things. It's a very casual vibe there. What I will say is that we never felt unsafe on the island, but you always want to be aware. Just like you would be at home, you want to make sure you check your surroundings. You want to make sure you don't leave anything out in your rental car. Even in your hotel room, you do want to make sure that nothing valuable is just left out laying around. Use your common sense, do your due diligence, and you'll have a great trip. If you did get value today, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I look forward to catching up with you on my journeys. Until next time, travel safe. Where are we going next? Let's go.